This is the market. The Cubs did not set the market. The players did, because they know that teams will sign them to these deals. Carlos Correa set his own price. He bet on himself when he took the one-year deal with the Twins, and it worked out in his favor. The reason he can back it up is because he was a generational talent. As soon as he got called up, that's when the Astros knew that they were going to win the World Series. He's made good on his promises. He does have back issues. The first one he had was still a punchline in Houston as far as the origin is concerned. It doesn't concern me as much as a pitcher's arm. They are two different things. But either way, there were four shortstops available that you knew you could build your team around. 3 of them are off the board. 3 of them signed similar deals. That is the market. The Cubs are not setting this market. The White Sox are not setting this market. It is no different from you going to the grocery store and realizing eggs are twice the price, or the Whole Foods hot bar is now $12.99 a pound. Either you're in or you're out. The other thing is, you're not just competing in talent development, which both teams and their farm systems are deficient at. You're also competing in talent acquisition. Either you're playing ball or you're not. And as far as the contracts that you worry about, where the back end of those contracts are bad, that is the going rate right now. Think about what you're paying for immediately. A 5-WAR player will set the market every time. And he wasn't even the one who everybody was concerned with the most. And for everybody who says, well, look at what the Phillies and the Padres did. The Padres added to their roster. The Padres have an all-time infield once Tatis' suspension comes off the books.
They spent money to be good at baseball, which is the point of this.
Everybody who's worried about that contract failing you, there are more that have worked than have not. This is the price you pay for talent. That is part of what competing is. That is part of the competition. It's not budget contest. That's the point. The game has changed. Either you change with it or you're left not competing. Unicorns don't exist. And somebody else is going to find it and pay for it if so. Listen to the current players that have contracts of 11 or more years. Fernando Tatis, are you regretting that one yet if you're San Diego? No, you're adding to it. You didn't stop paying just because he's not around right now. Carlos Correa with 13. Bryce Harper, do you think that the Phillies fans think that that was a bad deal? They say that they made good on it. They went to the World Series. Giancarlo Stanton, how did the Yankees support that one? Julio Rodriguez, the face of the new franchise on the West Coast. And by the way, who did they sign last offseason? They signed the defending Cy Young winner, Mookie Betts, the team that competes every year with 12. Mike Trout with 12 because he wanted to stay home. Xander Bogaerts because he wanted to leave Boston and join the team that has Fernando Tatis. Trey Turner, Wander Franco.
I just don't understand why you're mad about, or you think it's somehow wrong when it's not even your money. We all may be dead by the end of these contracts anyway. Nobody complained. And they even said it, too, when they signed John Lester to the deal that was necessitated by the market, that had bad years on the back end, and they were.
But they weren't, because he produced up until practically the end of that contract.
And flags fly forever. And if you're just worried about the end of the deal, you know what you do at the end of the deal? Spend more money. Because you know how much money you're going to be accruing in value for that franchise and all the real estate and everything else that they've got involved. If you actually look at the number of commas and zeros that are going to be involved here, that's chicken scratch by the time you get done. Well, at the end of that deal, he's not going to be any good. Well, then hopefully you'll be developing players and spending on more players and trading off other players. It's 13 years from now. What do you care?
And for those of you who do care, check out Forbes' valuation of every single professional team in September, where they said every single one is going to increase by 30% because of gambling. And then call me. And by the way, look on the north side of the sports book at Wrigley. Tell me again how they don't have the money. They just don't want to pay it. You're not comfortable with paying it. That's the thing that needs to be addressed here. This market is passing you by. The game has changed. Once again, If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen.
For those who think these player contracts, my goodness, what's happening? The owners are paying it. This is the fact that multiple teams now, multiple different teams have looked at the price of doing business and said, okay, we'd like you on the team.
The Cubs themselves told you they're okay with this because Jason Hayward isn't playing for them this season. This is the price you pay now. And whether or not anybody likes it, they haven't developed enough talent. And for the people who say the Dodgers and the Astros did, they also made huge trades, sent a lot of prospect capital elsewhere, and signed their players to massive contracts. The concept of the Jose Altuve 7-year deal is over. And the Players Association was mad about the first team-friendly deal he signed because they thought that was not positive for the union as a whole.
Well, there's a good point here also that I think is made by Bill on Capitol Hill. Said, Leila, even if you're right about the players driving the market, it's at least the second revolution the Cubs have missed. First, you had the Rapsodo Edgertronic Advanced Analytics, and now the private equity model of amortized contracts. That when Jed Hoyer went into this offseason, with everything you're saying about money to spend, remember that Jed went into the offseason saying higher average annual value, perhaps, and maybe a shorter term, which is the opposite of where it's going. That's flat wrong. And there's a reason, and there's a team side reason, and the reason is tax purposes. The reason is spreading it out to make sure the average annual value is less, because then you're paying less in tax, in the competitive balance tax. You're paying less. So what the Cubs anticipated they might be able to do, it turns out that they read it wrong. They read it wrong.
And they weren't the only ones. But this water carrying concept where people have replied to me with takes that are just loser or laughable. GM's getting pushed around. Nico and Morel can more than handle the spot. Take a step back, Rahimi. Read your words out loud and tell me if they make sense. You're trying to cheer for a team who told you it wants to compete. This is the market, whether or not you like it.
There's another aspect to it that I want to get into.
And if it's not your market, then guess what? You're not competing in free agency.
Exactly. But there's another aspect to it, too, that confuses me. And if, in fact, the Cubs are getting blindsided by this as we speak and feel that they're not able to compete, it raises some questions about moves that they already made that now may kind of die on the vine in a way they shouldn't have. Because now you're taking money you've already spent and making some of that seemingly worth less.
I got one more point to make. If you want to see what happens when you miss out on a generational talent because you were close, but you didn't quite get there because you were uncomfortable, look at what would have happened to the White Sox if they had Manny Machado. I'm done.